James is a survivor. He's also a priest, a former priest as well. James, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
What does today mean for you?
It's a day of victory in many respects for the countless and voiceless victims of clergy sexual abuse, that now we can force discovery of their histories, the histories of their abusers, and help them even begin to reconstitute what they've lost as a result of this tragedy. So in a certain sense, yeah, a day of victory, but you watch the images of the survivors who have filed so far, and they're breaking down in front of all of us on television. And so yesterday I spent some time fielding calls from some of the folks that I work with directly and some of the survivors that we all know, just because it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination to recall this type of material.
We have the two of you in studio for a brief period of time together, and I'm hoping we can kind of go into the relationship that an abuse survivor would have with an attorney. That has to be a tough thing to take that step, to go to an attorney in the first place. James, I guess, how do other survivors, how do you make that decision of who to trust, when to go to somebody?
Over about 3 decades, I told some family members, some friends, the priests that were assigned to me in my training at Christ the King Seminary, but I didn't really stand up and attempt to take action until I was really just about 39, 40 years old. And frankly, a lawyer was one of the last people that I considered going to. Now, that was my experience. As I accompany victims through this process now in Buffalo for about 2 years, I see oftentimes it's an attorney that is the first person and perhaps sometimes the only person that a victim is willing to confide in. And I think that speaks in part to someone like Steve Boyd, who we stand on his shoulders as somebody who investigated these matters back in the early 90s. I remember him doing that well at Christ the King Seminary when Father John Aurelio was my homiletics professor. And so you have all of this baggage and preconceived notions of how people are going to react. And here in Buffalo, I think we have an array of compassionate advocates. And so I'm seeing again and again, victims are speaking to me or to Paul Barr, who I work with, or to Steve or others. Oftentimes they're the very first person they speak to.
Do you think there's strength in numbers, James, that people are going to watch what's happening today? People who haven't had that courage to come forward, people who are struggling with this and have been, maybe for decades, to see what's happening today and to say, you know what, I think I can do it now.
2 years ago, the group that meets regularly in Buffalo, this is before there was any renewed media notoriety, we would gather periodically, maybe about once a month, to share our stories and have some fellowship together. But 2 years ago, this past January, about a year ago, last January, we were wondering if this was ever going to break again, if we were going to ever pick up where we left off in the mid-90s. Fast forward to a year ago today, I sat next to Attorney General Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania as he released the grand jury report there. And those of us who were in that room on the stage with the Attorney General, we speak about ourselves, about each other, as if we are family. And so yes, absolutely, it's a long answer to the question, but it doesn't happen overnight, but there is a sense of community and a sense of family that has built up among us survivors.
Steve, how much of a difference does somebody like James make? Because it's one thing for you or another attorney to say, hey, if this happened to you, I can help you out, come see me. But to have somebody who actually went through that, guide people through the process, that has to be something different.
I think it is, and I think that what we see is the survivors who have been able to come forward, people like James. It takes such courage to do that, and to have your face and your name shown. They give power to those other people that haven't been able to come forward. One of the things I want to point out, and it goes to your earlier question, is that I've never seen such cooperation among plaintiffs' lawyers. We're usually trying to compete with each other and get the cases, but Paul Barr, who works with James and I, we're on the phone 4 or 5 times a week, supporting each other because of the things that we've heard, strategizing with each other, and he's trying to help me with my clients. I'm trying to help him with his clients, and that's true with Mitch Garabedian and of course Jeff Anderson. We're all kind of a community of plaintiffs lawyers. We know that at some point we're going to have to work together, and so far we've all been working together really well.
Is there anything to compare this to, this 1-year look back window with you guys?
I was thinking about that last night when we filed the first cases. I was looking around thinking, you're witnessing history, because we've never witnessed a time where it was a window where all of these cases that have built up over these years can now be filed on this day. And so today is really a historic day for not only for the New York court system, because it, I'm sure, is getting overwhelmed with the number of cases filed, but it's a historic day for the people like James and others who worked so hard for so long to open those courthouse doors.
One last thing for you, Steve, before we let you go. That 1-year window, a lot of attention on those cases today, over 90 against the Diocese of Buffalo, and I'm sure those are cases that, and you know, some you've worked on for years and years leading up to this point. But there is a year, right? So if somebody has not reached out to you or somebody else yet, there is that year to take action.
I had a conversation with Paul when the act was passed, and they had a 6-month delay, and one of us said to the other, that 6 months is going to pass by in 2 minutes. And that conversation seems like it took 2 minutes ago. So this year is going to go fast. And there were people coming in and calling and contacting us right up until 9 o'clock last night, hoping we could file on the 14th. We hope that people will come forward earlier so that we can put their cases forward and we can begin the discovery process for them.
Steve, I appreciate it so much, you coming in. We've got a lot more with James Faluszczak next, but again, we really appreciate the insight, Steve.
Thank you both.
WBEN News Time.